So 2023 is coming to a close, and it is pretty standard common practice to start to check the performance of your retirement portfolio and how that has tracked alongside your expectations for the year. This video is titled, Why Your Retirement Portfolio Has Underperformed the S&P 500. And we're going to talk about three things in this video. The first is to explain the phenomenon of why that when the S&P 500 has performed well as it has this year, how do we disentangle and understand why our individual retirement portfolios underperform? The second is, how do we understand or create a better reference guide for benchmarks that we can use for our retirement investments? And the third is to understand how Wall Street benefits from the kind of propaganda or the steering that they do, so that we will use a myriad of benchmarks that are arbitrary that they create to incentivize us to then create fee opportunities for them. If you're new to the channel, my name is Eric Amzalag. I am the owner and head financial planner at Peak Financial Planning. We are fee-only fiduciary financial planners and wealth managers in Southern California. We work with clients all over the country to help you navigate the retirement risk zone, make better financial decisions, and ultimately live in peace with your wealth. And without further ado, let's jump into the topics at hand today. I'm going to begin this conversation by talking about the S&P 500's performance year to date. And I'm going to reference an article that Lance Roberts from realinvestmentadvice.com published earlier this week. This is the last week of November before Thanksgiving as of making this video. And the basic summary of that article is that the market performance this year, specifically 2023, is largely a result of 7 stocks that performed really well. They've been titled the Magnificent Seven in the media. And really what's happened is the other 493 stocks in the S&P 500 index have really not performed all that well. In fact, have pretty much had a bear market or underperformed. And what this has done is created a disproportionate skewing of the actual S&P 500 index results. The reason is because those 7 companies hold such a large proportionate weighting in that index that they skew the index and show a positive or really positive return this year, in this case, 17% roughly overall. Yet the rest of the S&P has not met that expectation. The reason your portfolio underperforms the S&P 500 is because when you invest in a diversified portfolio that is spread among many different funds, stocks, or combinations of both, and not all of those things will be fully invested in the top 7 holdings of the S&P 500, and therefore your portfolio will lag behind that. Now, the real root of this phenomenon is to ask, is that actually bad? Is that a catastrophe? So we're going to seek to explore that by talking about benchmarks and how you understand how to benchmark your portfolio. But before we do that, we're going to go into point number 3 that I mentioned in the intro, which should actually be point number 2, which is who benefits when you're told to compare your results against a bunch of other arbitrary benchmarks? And the answer I'd present to you is that it's Wall Street. Wall Street makes money, Wall Street being big finance or the big banks and the big brokerage companies. They make money when money changes positioning from one type of investment to another type of investment, or from one person's hands or one brokerage company's hands to another. That's where all the arbitrage and the fees take place. When you switch from an insurance product to a bunch of mutual funds, or when you switch from mutual funds to an annuity, that's where all the fees takes place. They have a direct incentive to create all sorts of different benchmarks that are arbitrary and make no sense to you or I if we were to think about them in the context of other things that we would track and compare results for in our other areas of our life, and yet we still find ourselves led by these arbitrary benchmarks. Now, Lance wrote in this article, and I'm going to read straight from it here, because I happen to personally agree very strongly with this principle. And one of the great duties I believe that I have as a fiduciary on behalf of clients is to help remind them of this phenomenon so that they don't make bad decisions with their money that benefit a specific set of big finance apparatus at Wall Street. So from Lance's article right here, comparison in financial markets can lead to awful decisions. For example, investors have trouble being patient and letting whatever process they have work for them. For example, should you be pleased if you made 12% on your investments but only needed 6%? However, you may feel disappointed when you find out everyone else made 14%. But why? Does it make any difference? What everyone else made, does it make any difference? And here's the ugly truth, Lance says. Comparison-related unhappiness is for Wall Street's benefit. The financial services industry is predicated on upsetting people. so that they will move money around in a frenzy. Money in motion creates fees and commissions. The creation of more and more benchmarks, products, and style boxes is nothing more than the creation of more things to compare with. And the end result is that investors remain in a perpetual state of outrage and fear. The lesson that Lance says he wants to drive home here in this article is the danger of following Wall Street's advice of beating some arbitrary index from one year to the next. What most investors are taught to do is to measure portfolio performance over a 12-month period against some arbitrary benchmark such as the sp500 index. However, that is absolutely the worst thing you can do. It is the same as being on a diet and weighing yourself every day. And I could go into a bunch of analogies in the health system that would be parallel to what Lance is saying here, but I won't. If you want to read the full article Lance wrote, I'll reference it in the description to this video below. The last part of this video is to say, if you, like me, are in agreement with this context and this phenomenon that we're speaking about in this video, and many of you may not be, and you're entitled to your opinion, but if you, like me, are in agreement with this, then the question is, what is a more useful benchmark for your retirement portfolio? And I present you a case that is very, very simple. We'll put it on the screen here. It doesn't require a lot of complexity. The answer is you want to use three things that you track. You want to track the performance of your previous portfolio. Let's say you're at the point at which you're considering making portfolio changes. You're either maybe thinking about working with an investment advisor, or you're doing it yourself, reading like Bogleheads or something like that. You want to take the previous 3-year average of your old portfolio and use that as your lower guardrail benchmark. That's the lower barrier. Then you want to take your new portfolio and track that quarterly for 6 quarters, at least 6 quarters, and use the quarterly average rate of return and compare that against your left guardrail, which is your old portfolio's performance, right? Because the purpose of making portfolio changes is to either get better portfolio performance or reduce volatility and sacrifice portfolio performance, but knowing you're doing that in order to reduce volatility, or both. And then your third and right guardrail should be your plan required rate of return. That is the rate of return that your financial plan tells you you need to obtain in order to meet your retirement spending goals. And the truth is, you need take no additional risk beyond the minimum amount of risk required in order to meet your financial plan objectives. You always can choose to take more risk and shoot for higher rates of return. But first, you should seek to at least match the rate of return required by your plan, because that is at least what you'll need in order to live for the rest of your life without running out of money. And the analogy here from health would be like saying, you're going to weigh yourself once a week. That's the middle guardrail. The left guardrail would say, I'm going to look at my weight for my previous 3 years. If you had tracked that, you're going to compare your current weight or the new weight each week to your old weight. And that's going to tell you, are you on track in the right direction? And then you'll have a goal, which would be your ideal target weight that you want to achieve. You'd ideally get that supplied to you by a nutritionist or a professional who can give you real context about what's a reasonable expectation. And then you want to track your own weight over a weekly period against your prior weight and see the directionality and the pace or the speed that you would achieve the new goal weight. And that would be the same in investing, right? So that's tracking your old portfolio's rate of return over a 3-year average, tracking your new portfolio's return over 6 quarters, and then tracking that against your financial plan required rate of return. So that's the video for today. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to include them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this kind of philosophical delve into the idea of performance reporting and how you track your own performance, especially as we round the year out here. If you have interest in specific video topics you'd like us to do, you can please put them in the comments section below or email them to us at eric@thepeakfp.com. You can also visit our YouTube channel for a whole bunch of other videos, including videos like how much money do you need to retire, when can you retire, how do you protect yourself against sequence of returns risk. You can also go to our website at www.thepeakfp.com to find a whole bunch of written guides around things like rollovers, how to perform a rollover, how to understand and service distributions, written sample financial plans. And from our website, you can also book a free consultation to communicate with us or work with us if you would like to explore that opportunity. As always, thank you for your time and attention in watching this video, and we'll see you in the next video.